Diablo 4 has been in full swing since the release of the beta, and these are some of the big things that we've learned so far. Make sure you guys subscribe and like the video below, and we're going to go over some of the biggest tips and tricks in this game. With that being said, here are 12 huge tips and tricks and things to know in Diablo 4. The first thing is going to be altars in Diablo 4. So Diablo 4 consists of a bunch of different things that you can actually interact with and do in order to bump up your completion percentages, so that way you can gain XP, gold, and additional rewards. Now Diablo 4 consists of altars, which once found you can actually click A to read the note on the altar. That will then indicate a certain action you can take in your emote wheel. Once you do that, you'll actually be rewarded with a chest. So some altars will allow you to pray, some will want you to wave, etc. Number 2 in Diablo 4 is sigils. So sigils will be used to access nightmare difficulty dungeons in Diablo 4. Nightmare difficulty dungeons in Diablo 4 unlock upon locating your first nightmare sigil. Each sigil corresponds to a specific dungeon somewhere within Sanctuary. These sigils will add special modifiers to the dungeons, increasing the intensities of the enemies waiting for you inside and providing higher rarity loot. Through completing nightmare dungeons, you will recover even more powerful sigils, introducing increasingly strong modifications and magnifiers, as well as challenges for you to overcome. As you progress into higher and more challenging world tiers, new nightmare dungeons will become available for you to explore. Sigils can be crafted at the occultist for a fee and can also be salvaged here as well. They can be crafted using sigil powder as well as salvaged in the same menu with the occultist. As you unlock these and access these nightmare dungeons, they can provide increasingly enhanced loot, meaning very high and much harder legendaries to find as you go throughout the game. Next, we have the silent chest in Diablo 4. So the silent chest is accessible in the game randomly, so as you're exploring around, you may happen to find yourself stumbling upon a silent chest. These generally grant very solid loot as well as rare or legendary items, but can actually only be unlocked one particular way. This chest isn't like a normal chest that you can actually open. It actually requires a whispering key, which you can obtain from one primary source. That source being the purveyor of curiosities vendor within towns. With this vendor, you can actually use murmuring obols, which you gain throughout random events and daily events throughout Sanctuary. And at the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down, you can purchase whispering keys from this vendor as well. This means you can purchase a couple whispering keys in case you happen to run upon a silent chest in the world. This way you can actually unlock them when you find them. It's always a good idea to go ahead and purchase a couple of these and make sure that you're carrying at least one or two. The next thing is obtaining your mount. So obtaining your mount in Diablo 4 is fairly self-explanatory, although we can't actually do it yet. Limited access exists for the Mount Donan's Favor quest. Your mount is actually unlocked in Act 2, so a quest you get that will adventure along the main/side storyline will give you access to this mount in Act 2 after you've completed Act 1. Enchanting. So enchanting in Diablo 4 is a huge part of the game. Enchanting allows you to essentially select an item. Enchanting an item is used to min-max your character and put the best abilities and stat modifiers on your gear as possible. So in any town, you can find the occultist, and what will happen is you can select then a piece of gear. You can select a specific stat on that piece of gear you wish to change. You can then pay gold to actually re-roll these stats, and it will give you a selection of 3. You can then select one of the stats presented to replace the original stat that you chose to replace, meaning you can get all solid stats on all of your gear that actually benefit your gear, and it doesn't just make a piece of armor a waste because you can change the stats on it. However, it does cost a decent amount of gold to do so. So once you get armor that you would really like to keep and is really solid, this is when you're going to want to actually adjust all your stats on all your gear to best fit your build. Now keep in mind when you actually do this, keep in mind when you do enchant an item manually, you actually do make that item bound to your account, meaning you can no longer sell or trade it, so keep that in mind. Leaving dungeons. I noticed while I was playing, after I got done with the boss, there were really only 2 options: run back to the beginning of the dungeon to get out, or use your teleport spell to get out and go to a nearby settlement. Now there's actually an easier way to leave dungeons. If you just open your emote wheel, you actually see the leave dungeon item right there on the left. You can select that to leave the dungeon and go right back outside to the outside of the dungeon to be close to your remaining quest line and not have to actually teleport to a town. XP buffs. XP buffs are a solid thing in Diablo 4, so keep these in mind. XP buffs I think at the beginning will be solid in Diablo 4, meaning keep this in mind. If you play on Adventurer, this will be an easier part of the game. If you play on Veteran, you actually get monsters that give 20% increased experience. Now, if you're not experienced enough with Veteran to play Don't do it because obviously the time given to veteran and the amount of times you're probably going to die won't make up for the XP gain. But also when you visit the alchemist, you can then level up your healing potions here, and you can go to the elixir tab and actually craft elixirs. These elixirs are very important because they give you in-game buffs as well as 5% XP across all of the elixirs in this category. Meaning by just drinking one every 30 minutes, you guarantee yourself 5% XP, making you actually level up a decent bit faster over time. Strongholds and world bosses in Diablo 4 are a large part of the game. If you're looking for deadly battles against tons of enemies in Diablo 4, be sure that clearing strongholds is one of the best things you can do. The game has many unique strongholds, each one featuring a unique reward. Strongholds in Diablo 4 are the unique in-game experience you cannot see in any of the other games of the franchise. Like local events, every stronghold is a specific region in the game occupied by monsters. Strongholds are about fighting enemies and getting valuable in-game rewards. A single stronghold guarantees you 50 renown points, which is important for leveling up your character and gaining extra rewards, in-game XP, and waypoints. Also, you have a slight chance of unlocking dungeons while completing strongholds. By completing all the strongholds in the game, you'll get way more waypoints and will unlock brand new dungeons. Make sure to do these so you find yourself excellent rare and legendary gear. World bosses also offer very solid gear and tons of legendary gear. So make sure when you see these pop up, if you don't have a group, you find a group or you participate in these world events. That way you can get all the solid loot that these world bosses and strongholds have to offer. Next is one of the biggest parts of Diablo 4, which is extracting and imprinting. So the way this works is if you actually find a legendary piece of gear, it will actually have a codec or a special stat on it. For instance, these Berserker Adventures pants have Lucky Hit, giving me up to a 35% chance to gain 57 Fortify whenever you deal direct damage while berserking. This is just an example, but as you get legendary gear and find it in the world, so the way this works is if you select, let's say this amulet, you want the specific aspect off of this amulet, you can select it within the occultist menu and you can actually extract that aspect for a certain price in gold. You can see here 7,380 gold. What you're going to do is you're going to pay that, and then if you go into your inventory, you're actually going to see that you can select the specific aspect that you just extracted in case you want to put it on other gear that you have. So you can see here I'm going to my aspect tab. This is an aspect I now have to use to put on any piece of gear that I wanted, whether it be a legendary piece, a rare piece. You can then put this on any piece. You can put it on a rare piece, and that will actually make that rare piece become a legendary piece because it has a legendary aspect on it. So you can then go back into the occultist menu. You can select an item that you want to imprint that aspect on, meaning add that stat to. Now keep in mind this will also character bound this item, meaning you can't sell it or trade it any longer. But you can select a rare item. You can apply then this new aspect to the item. Check the item preview to see if you like the way the stat comes off on the item. Now certain items can only be imprinted on certain items. It'll tell you if it can only be imprinted on a helmet, dual swords, etc. But this is how you would add that aspect to the item. Also, by imprinting aspects, it requires certain materials such as legendary materials, which you can get from salvaging gear. So once you salvage enough gear, got the item and the aspect you want to imprint and the materials to do so, you can then imprint this onto your new piece of gear. Meaning once you do this across all of your gear, you can essentially min-max your character to make your character have all the special abilities, special effects, and stats consistent across every piece of gear that you want to make him the most powerful character you possibly can in Diablo 4. That's why this is one of the biggest pieces so far. Next is something obvious, upgrading gear. So upgrading gear in Diablo 4 works on an item level basis, meaning if an item is level 1, sometimes you can't really tell, but you can actually go into the blacksmith and select an item if you would like to upgrade it, and each item, depending on its rarity, has a certain amount of upgrade spots available. You can see this rare item has 3 upgrade spots available. You can select it and actually pay gold and use some materials which you can get from salvaging gear to actually upgrade this item level on this gear, which increases overall the stats that the gear has. Now, one of the important things you want to do here is only upgrade gear that you think is really worth it, because upgrading in this game is fairly expensive. Even just upgrading this random piece of rare gear that I just happen to have on costs 3,500 gold and 7,000 gold, etc. So make sure you enchant the items that you want to upgrade, as well as imprint the aspects and stuff on them before you upgrade, do that, and then feel free to upgrade your gear all you want. Finally, we have side quests. So side quests are obviously extremely valuable in Diablo 4. One of the big things here, one thing here is you don't necessarily have to do all the side quests obviously, but grab as many as you can. If you run into one, just go ahead and grab it, and so that way you at least have it available, because what you'll find is when you're adventuring out through these maps, most of the time the main storyline will take you a large way around the entire map that you're currently looking at, meaning majority of the time you'll actually run into where these side quests are. So it's good to go ahead and at least have them available. That way you can knock them out real quick. That's going to make the leveling in this game so much quicker. So by the time you go to areas, you'll be 5 or 10 levels above maybe what you would have been a couple acts in if you never really did any side quests and just stuck to the main storyline. Obviously the main storyline is the large part of the XP that you're going to gain, but side quests is also a solid amount from that, as well as the bonuses you get monetarily in Diablo 4. You're going to actually gain renown points, which unlock certain benefits for you. The more renown you have, the more ability you have to collect these special rewards such as gold and other benefits that you get from actually gaining renown within the game. Let me know in the comments what you thought about Diablo 4 so far, and make sure to drop a like on the video if this helped you or you already knew all of these things. That being said, that's it for me. Thanks guys.